All right, everybody, a very, very warm welcome from a pretty chilly northeastern part of South Africa. We see there people from Cyprus, India, Mexico. You are all so welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and happy Lion Day.
Yes,
Lion,
absolutely.
that's right, and it's the poor lions. They've lost half their range, and if you examine any animal in trouble today, you will find their space has been taken. It's real simple, and let's hope that we can work towards, and that's certainly part of EcoTraining's mission, is to expand the green frontier and ensure that there is space for animals like the charismatic lion. So I'm not going to hold everyone up for too long. Just welcome to our e-learning free animal behavior lecture. EcoTraining started its e-learning offerings last year during the lockdown, the first lockdown. EcoTraining, just for some of you who may not know, has been going for 28 years. We're the longest established private guiding and wildlife training company in South Africa. Got 4 camps in South Africa, 1 in Botswana, and a beautiful camp on the banks of the Mara River in Kenya. So we wanted to take this opportunity to offer you a free course, and just to also give you a bit of an understanding of what other courses we have. And by the way, my name is Alex van den Heever. My apologies. My name is Alex van den Heever, and I'm one of the directors of EcoTraining, and it's just such an honor to have you. So we've got a few online courses already running. Our field guide course, which is a Field Guides Association FAGASA endorsed program. It's a really comprehensive program that introduces you to all aspects of nature and field guiding. Then there's the Nature Enthusiast, which is a slightly diluted program for those who may not wish to want to follow a career in guiding, but who want to know more about nature and anything natural that surrounds them. And then we've got the online Trails Guide course and Trails Enthusiast. That's the information you need to know if you want to go walking safely in Big 5 areas. And so those are our 3 courses that we are offering right now. All of them are run like we are doing this one, a live lecture. It's called Synchronous Learning. We will be early next year launching our asynchronous platform, which means essentially that you will be able to log on to our website, download the programs, and learn at your own leisure. We're hoping that offering, a legitimate e-learning offering, will be ready by January or February next year. And then we've got 2 really exciting new online courses coming, a wildlife tracking program, as well as a birding program. Now, all of these are delivered online, as I've mentioned, but you can also do them in practical courses at any one of the 6 EcoTraining course camps around Southern and Eastern Africa. And I would recommend strongly that if you've had an enjoyable online course, please do look up our practical courses offered in beautiful remote wildlife areas, in tented camps, humble tented camps that are unfenced, and we will immerse you into nature. You will wake up with the lions calling, and in a very short space of time, you'll find yourself being entrenched in nature and feeling nature all around you. So that's who we are. At the end of this 1-hour program that we're going to run for you, you're going to be delivered a whole lot of information. Listen carefully, because right at the end, there's going to be a question, one question, and the person who answers that fastest, the correct answer, stands to win an online EcoTraining online course of their choice. Before we get going, I just thought I'd introduce you to your 2 instructors today. Veritable David Haverman, born in Johannesburg and is the lead or head instructor for EcoTraining, and Mike Anderson, who was born in Zimbabwe, close to the Hwange National Park. Both of them tell me they were born in hospitals, which is, I'm glad to know, but they have collectively a huge amount of tacit knowledge, deep knowledge of particularly the areas that they work. But these 2 men are the naturalists in the true sense of the word, and they're going to be taking you through the 1 hour today. I think David is going to start, and I'm going to hand it over to Dave. Here you go.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Alex. Greetings, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. So let's get started, guys. And it's such an amazing uh, subject, this, animal behavior is so vast. So, and we can talk for hours and hours on end. So I'm not going to elaborate too much on each drawing, but just having a look at that particular question there in your mind. What is animal behavior? So there's a couple of little scenarios that you can ask yourself, when and how often, and we'll have a look at that. But why, for me, is a European bee eater so brightly colored? Just maybe a question that you can think of. I don't know, Mike, why would you say a European bee eater is so brightly colored?
There's so many theories, Dave. There's so many theories about why these birds are so colorful. And one of the ones that I think is really cool is that they mostly eat, as the name suggests, bees, but a whole variety of other insects that fly around.
Yeah.
This one's eating a caterpillar or something. But what I think is really cool is that those bright colors of these birds might actually attract those insects from afar to come closer to investigate. Maybe there's a blossom of some sort, and then the bird can fly and catch them.
Perfect. Yeah, bright colors attract insects, guys, and that's why we don't wear bright colors out in the bush. Come in your neutral colored clothing, and we'll see you in the bush somewhere down the line. Great. Thanks, Alex. I think we can go across to the next slide. Good. Now, the word ethology, the study of the characteristics of animals. And as you can see there, we've got a whole bunch of when, how often, where, with whom, and why. Why is this particular bull elephant looking the way it does? And we'll bounce into that quite shortly now. But that picture there on the right-hand side, it just reminds me of a very interesting story about elephant graveyards. And remember, elephants only have around about 6 sets of molars in their life. And towards the end of their life, around about 60, 70 years, they wander down to areas with softer vegetation, normally in riverine vegetation. And, it's easier to eat the food over there. But most of the time they will die in that waterine vegetation, and the water sweeps their bodies down to a particular area, and there you'll find the notorious or the famous elephant graveyard. But it's a myth, guys, and you'll see with a lot of the information that we're going to give, there's so many facets to these stories. But let's have a look at what this particular bull elephant and what the word must really means. Good. So remember, elephants, right from the very beginning, you'll be able to tell from a distance that their temporal glands are secreting a sort of a viscous fluid, and their glands actually swell up. Remember, an elephant's brain is about the size of a loaf of bread. It's a shame those glands swell up to such a degree that a bull, say in his 40s, can be in must for up to 5 months. Now imagine having a headache for 5 months. That's just one of the telltale signs that shows that an elephant is in must. But the word must really comes from it's an Urdu word from northern India. I think it has Arabic influences, but it means intoxicated. So the testosterone levels increase to such a point that these animals become unruly, and that's where you'll get them chained up, which is not the best thing, but you need to work with these animals, and that is not the time to be doing it. The must. Okay. Good, guys. So we're going to head into a little bit of information here about grouping hierarchies. Just to simplify the lecture, I'm not going to read all of that, but what we are going to be looking at is individuals, populations, and communities. And I'm sure we all know Isambani, the aardvark. Remember, the only ant bear, so to speak, a big, beautiful animal that weighs around about 60 kilograms, almost the size of a big teddy bear. But remember, the word Isambani is from Ungunis, and you'll see we're going to go into a lot of different words. We haven't really spoken about the genuses and the species yet, but we will touch on that shortly. But the aardvark taught the Ngoonies how to dig. And what are you looking for, old diligent digger? You know, of course, ants and termites, depending on the time of the year. I know in summertime, it's more termites. And then in wintertime, you know, the termites go quite deeply down into the earth, and the ants are a lot more easily accessible. But yes, what are you looking for, oh diligent digger? One of those individuals. You normally only see them by themselves. Let's have a look at some of the other individuals, Alex. Good, a pangolin and a bushbuck. So most of the time, I stay quite close here to the Olifants River. So when I go for walks down there, you often hear this bark, like a loud barking sound, and that is the bushbucks shouting at you. Most of the time, they are found by themselves, roaming the thickets over there, and you'll see that genus and that species name next door to the bushbuck really describes so much, you know, to a guide. You know, future guides need to wrap their mind not so much around the pronunciation of those words, but the stories. The stories are so wonderful. And Trigolaphus really comes from, you know, the spiral-horned antelopes, the stag-like antelopes, and also the sylvisticus is to do with wandering in wooded areas. Now, Mike, I don't know if anybody's ever called you an itermagoch.
An itermagoch? No, no one has ever called me that, Dave, but I'll look out for it now.
That is, it's an Afrikaans word, and I've been trying to find out where this word comes from. Now, I know that magoch apparently is an ant in the Tswana word, and then iter is a strange animal. So I know amongst our Afrikaans fraternity, they might be able to recognize that word. Some very, very interesting individuals. But let's head over into the population. That's the sort of next hierarchical grouping over there. And as you can see immediately, remember, a population is a group of individuals that are related and they can breed with each other. The banded mongoose have the reputation as being the most gregarious carnivore on planet Earth, which is an interesting, up to 40. I've maybe between 20 and 30, but you know, when there's anything beyond the 30 bracket, they just become a mass of movement. You don't often see them. And the word mongoose, I know, has Hindi origins, something to do with their ability to kill snakes. Remember, Herpestidae, the study of snakes, herpetologists. So these guys are classics when it comes to killing snakes. Then, of course, Burchell zebra, named after William John Burchell, and Equus quagga burchelli. We'll have a look at that Latin name a little bit later, or the scientific name. Let's go across to community. So we've gone from individual, population, and then into a community. And ultimately, it's a combination of all of those individuals and all of those populations that come together. And just looking at that beautiful picture that comes from Pride Lands, that is Ndlovu Dam, Ndlovu, which is the elephant, a spectacular place where many, many breeding herds of elephants and big breeding herds of buffaloes come in. That might be, looks like a dagga boy. Remember the big buffalo bulls? Dagga is a Zulu word for mud. And as you can see there, you know, going into that mud, you might even find some terrapins or some frogs. So don't forget, there's a lot more to this picture than what the eye sees. Great. I think we're heading along.
This is where I come in.
Thanks
so much, Dave. Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here with so many of you and so many people that have been on courses and on these online things before. It's great to have you back. I'm glad you've come to join us. So we've talked now about individuals, populations, and communities, and how all these things work together. But each particular species of animals within a population of animals has a specific range of numbers that they work best at, how their groups function within their niche best. So, for example, there are solitary animals, and there are animals that have a matriarchal system where the female is in charge, usually the oldest female. Then you've got oligarchies and all sorts of other types of group structures. And this is what makes them so successful. It doesn't make sense for an animal to have a huge, massive herd of animals when they live in a very thick environment where they need to be quiet and hidden away from danger. And so that's why they have different group organizations and structures. So we won't go through all of them because it's a lot to get through, but we'll touch on some of the more common ones that we're probably going to see out here when you come on a course with EcoTraining or you visit any wildlife area in Southern or East Africa. So Alex, if we could begin. Right, so to start off with, we'll talk about solitary animals. Now, solitary animals are some of my favorites. A leopard is my absolute favorite animal. I just think they're absolutely spectacular, the way they look, the way they move, the way they hunt. And the fact that they're solitary makes them, in my opinion, just so well adapted. They can hide in the smallest of thickets. I mean, you find leopards even living in places like Mumbai, one of the biggest cities in India, in the middle of the city, moving around at night, hunting, moving around without humans ever knowing that they're there. Now, being solitary doesn't mean that they're always alone forever. They come together at certain points in their life when they want to breed, or the females when they're raising their youngsters. Now, I say the females, it's not always the females. Some other species might be males that look after the youngsters, particularly things like birds, and sometimes maybe fish. But generally speaking, we're talking about mammals here. We will talk about some birds as well. But generally speaking, these animals that you see here, the hunters, caracal, leopard, serval, these are solitary animals that move around on their own. So it's a spectacular lifestyle, and it works very successfully for them because, for example, the leopard lives in a thick environment. If it was moving in a big group, it would give away its advantage. So that's a really cool and interesting animal grouping behavior, social structure. And now we'll talk about pairs. So now you've got one solitary animal. Now think about how you can improve that in a different circumstance would be a pair. So Alex, if you can show us the next slide there. Right, so you can see a pair is simply two animals that are living together. Sometimes it's also called monogamy, which is generally speaking how we as humans live as well. I say generally, doesn't work for everyone, but it's generally a very successful behavior. Now, this are black-backed jackals. And they live in generally quite open areas, and they have rather large litters. So generally, being alone, solitary, raising a group of young jackal pups would be quite difficult. So that's why they work in a pair. And it's very successful, and you'll see here, over 90% of bird species also are pair bonded or monogamous. And this is because generally animals that have larger groups of youngsters need help to raise them. And also they have a smaller territory or home range. So it wouldn't make sense for them to have to move far and wide to find their mates. They want to be staying in a small area together, looking after it and defending it. Now, it's not only jackals that live in this type of behavioral group structure. Other animals like klipspringer, steenbok, most of the duiker species, these are all smaller animals that occupy smaller spaces. They don't move far and wide, and it's very successful. But pairs sometimes also get classed as families once they have youngsters. And we'll talk about this in the next slide. Alex, can just show us that. So when these jackals have youngsters, or in the case of this slide, these arrow-marked babblers, it might be a bit too difficult for them to raise them on their own, especially if they've got a rather large litter. So what sometimes happens is the youngsters from a previous litter or clutch of eggs will stay with the parents to raise the next group of youngsters, which I think is amazing because they give up the opportunity to breed for one season in order to learn the skills to be able to breed successfully the next season. I mean, that's really an intelligent thought for an animal to be able to think, I better help so I can learn rather than follow my instincts to actually breed. I think is great. So with arrow-marked babblers, for example, there'll be an alpha pair who then get helped by the old offspring, and the new offspring will then take over that role, and then the slightly older youngsters will move off and start their own alpha pair. It's amazing. Now, this is a very interesting one. So a harem is a very specific type of breeding behavior or group structure. Now, a harem is simply one male controlling a group of females. It's very interesting how, for example, a plain zebra, Equusquacha burchellii, that Dave was speaking about earlier. So a stallion will have a group of females. He will mate with them, usually 4 or 5. He'll mate with them and they will give birth to offspring. Young males will eventually leave on their own, but young females will stay with the group. He can't look after so many. And he also doesn't really want to breed or mate with his own offspring because that's going to dilute the gene pool. So what happens is the young males that have moved off on their own, once they start to get old enough that the father doesn't want them around, because they start becoming sexually active, what will happen is that young stallion will move along and find a group of, or another harem, and he will try his best to distract the male or steal a young female or a filly from that male. And if he's able to keep her away from the natal group, the mother and the father, the stallion that looks after them, he will then control her and she will stay with him for the protection that he offers. Remember, a zebra is a very powerful animal. They have a powerful kick. They can bite with their sharp teeth. So it works very successfully. And this way they keep the gene pool flowing. So it works very well. Now, zebra is not the only animal that uses a harem. Other animals like impala are not always having a harem, but in the rutting season, when the males are fighting for females, they will actually operate a harem. They will control a group of females, fighting off other males. And during that month of the rutting season, what's really interesting is that more than one male might control a single group of females. What does that ensure? It ensures that the best and strongest genes are passed on to the next generation. I think it's probably, in my opinion, one of the most successful breeding strategies, because you keep the gene pool diluted, and you have only the strongest that are surviving. I think it's fantastic. Up to 5 mares. I mean, I think one girlfriend would be tough enough. Imagine having 5 that you have to deal with. Oh no, someone missed. Candace, I'm so sorry that you missed 10 minutes of that. But don't worry, we'll catch you up. I think this is being recorded for anyone who misses any part of it, so don't worry about that. So we talked about matriarchy, and this is something that we see often at one particular campus of ours, which is Pride Lands, right? So Pride Lands is very lucky to have a waterhole right next to the camp where our students stay. And almost every single day, groups of elephants arrive. Sometimes I think it's been counted over 100 elephants at one particular waterhole. Now, that's not simply one group, it's many families. And each of those families is led by and supported by a matriarch, usually the oldest, most experienced female who knows exactly where water is. The reason why we have so many elephants at Pride Lands is because we've got that waterhole and there isn't a lot more water in the surrounding areas. So it means that that female who's learned over many years where the water is can lead her group directly to the waterholes. And it's really evident at Pride Lands where we see elephants interacting with each other. They'll stop and they'll be quiet, and then the matriarch will rumble or give some signal. And we can't always hear all the communication, but we definitely can tell that that one animal is leading this group, and it's really fun to watch. So if you ever do come to visit us at Pride Lands, hopefully you'll get lots of opportunity to look at these animals as they come to the waterhole, very close sometimes, right through the camp. This is always good. We also have lots of hyenas at Pride Lands, which are also matriarchal. There'll usually be an alpha female who will look after the whole group. Sometimes she's called a queen, and her offspring will automatically take that mantle as the highest ranking female. So matriarchal systems are very, very successful on Pride Lands, more than any other that I've seen on Pride Lands. And then finally, the last one. I don't think it's the last one, but an oligarchy is sort of like the opposite of a matriarchy and a harem, kind of. So what this is there's a group of large, strong males that now control the whole group. And what that does is it makes defending them much easier. Not that a baboon struggles to defend its group. Look at those teeth. I don't know if you can see that.
Mike,
Massive.
Sorry, Mike. I just saw somebody log in from Rwanda, and that those teeth, that Papio nubis, That picture was actually taken up in Rwanda.
So that is an olive baboon.
Yeah.
In any case, baboons all over are spectacular in the size of their teeth. I think for their body size, some of the largest canine teeth of all the mammals that we get here in Southern and East Africa. And so they're not exactly any slouches when it comes to defending their groups. But in a big group like that, it sometimes, especially where the food is good and where the environment is conducive to it, baboon groups can become large, 30, 40, 50 individuals in one troop. And so one single male would really struggle to defend the whole area. So when there are 4 or 5 very big, strong males, that means they have much better control. And then they can support each other. If another animal tries to take over the mantle, if he's looked after his group of strong males, then they will support him if he gets attacked by another male that wants to take over. So it's a really efficient way of keeping a group defended. Okay, I think this is the last. So the caste system is very interesting. So we've got one of our EcoTraining students here who has become a backup, and he's busy looking at a termite mound. And this termite mound has got a dark patch on the side. That's the new growth or the new build. So the termites have recently, probably that night, created another extension to their termite mound. And this is probably one of the most successful grouping behaviors of all. It allows termite colonies to become millions and millions strong. And many insects have this kind of strategy where each individual is hatched into a role that they will forever remain in, with some exceptions, which we won't go into now because it's quite detailed. But if you come and join us on a course, we'll explain it in more detail. But for example, the queen is always going to be a queen, a soldier is always a soldier, a worker will always be a worker. And because they all know what their role is, they're able to be very efficient. They don't get distracted with other things. They do their thing. There's no mating if I'm not a king or a queen. I just work and I do my thing. And yeah, it allows these colonies to get super massive and very well organized. In fact, in our design of many buildings and cities, we try and actually copy the way termites have built their structures because they are so incredibly efficient. And I think it's what makes them quite amazing. In fact, there are a whole bunch of them. I mean, if you come in the summertime, I mean, the termite activity is phenomenal. I mean, when there's eruptions, Dave, when those eruptions happen and you get millions of termites, literally like a volcano erupting out, there's all the kings and queens that are traveling out to create new termite colonies and mix their genetics. Oh, it's really cool. And then the insect life just explodes, which for some of us is really great. Some of you maybe wouldn't like that part of the bush that much.
Yeah, that's where all the European bee eaters come.
It is, Eric.
Come down south, eh?
For those of you who are commenting if this is Eric, I would say yes, it is Eric. For those of you who recognize
Eric. Yeah.
Is Eric in Germany.
There's a question here, Mike, asking, do bees also use the caste system?
Absolutely, they do. Absolutely. There's a queen, there are drones, and there are kings that mate with the queen, and the drone's job is to bring food and keep the eggs clean and keep the queen safe. And so there's definitely a division of labor when it comes to bees. Any animal that occurs in these huge groups like this, or rather insect that occurs in these huge groups, will have some sort of division of labor. Even some mammals do it. I don't know if you've ever heard of a naked mole rat. Naked mole rats also have a caste system where there's a queen and there are larger ones that are soldiers or defenders, and then there are drones who go and collect food and keep the system of tunnels clean. Very wretched looking creatures, but very interesting in their lifestyle. So certainly they do.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.